During that whole break, I didn't take a drink. I was too busy digressing and making a joke, and then yeah, that's how on the ball we are. You know, we're mad busy at this time of year, and we still carve chunks out to do this because, honestly, with everything else Brandy and I do, all the behind-the-scenes stuff, this is truly our passion. This is what we love. We live for it. We always brainstorm and talk about it. So if we do seem a little disorganized, we absolutely are. And if it only seems like a little, we're taking it as a win. So what is an annual? An annual is any plant that does its full life cycle in one season, okay? So that means basically you're gonna take it and you're gonna have it, if you start from seed, great, or if you buy a little one like this, great, but it's gonna go all through the season and it's gonna grow and it's gonna flower and it's gonna fruit if it is a veggie or a fruit plant, then it's gonna die. And every part of that plant is going to die. So this week on GA Kids TV, we talked about what is a plant. And a plant is made up of 3 elements. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, and we did kind of cover that. But you've got the roots, the stem, and the leaves. On an annual, every part of that dies. Okay? Seeds might live depending on the type of annual, and they may overwinter, but there's no guarantee on that, depending on how harsh our winters are. As opposed to a perennial, and perennials, and we will be doing a webinar on perennials, I believe that's next week, and a perennial has a lifespan that encompasses many seasons, decades even, and when they die back in the winter, only the stem and the leaves die, the roots live. And on some perennials, the leaves may die, but the stem may live. So that is the primary difference between an annual and a perennial. And it sums up what an annual is. So I talked there about the annual life cycle. So what is the life cycle? Now, we're talking about an annual here. So this all happens in one season, but this is somewhat relatively true for every plant. Every plant will go through this. Some may live longer, or they'll go dormant, etc., etc. But what we start with is a seed, okay? So everything here came from a seed, or at the very least, a clipping. But for the point of this exercise, we're gonna stay with what everybody knows, the easy terms. So this plant here was grown from seed, okay? And this pansy started life in a little germination pot, probably on some heat mats, in a greenhouse, being tended. Then it sprouted, okay? And then that seed put out the cotyledons, which are those first leaves, and then it started its vegetative growth. So it put out all of these leaves. It started putting out a stem, then it put out a few more leaves. The leaves developed out of the cotyledon into the proper adult leaves, the mature leaves. And it started growing until it hit maturity. And as it matured and it got bigger, then it went into the flowering process. And that's where we're at. With all of these that you see, I'm not talking about the coleus or the creeping jenny. They are purely a vegetative plant, so there are differences. But now this has gone to flower. And throughout the season, it's going to keep sending up blooms. We're going to deadhead if needed. We're going to clean it up. We're going to pop off our geranium heads. We'll clean these up if they need it. If it doesn't, pansies don't really need deadheading. It'll just keep prolific blooms as long as it has water and fertilizer, but we'll get to that all season. And then we get those frosts, and the first frost might knock it back or stunt its growth, but it might be okay. Second or third frost, or if that first frost is a really heavy ground freezer, sayonara, that's it. Thank you for everything you did. You made summer beautiful, and we move on. But we're not going to talk about autumn and winter because we just got through that. So that is a full life cycle of a plant. And the reason it's doing that, we get to enjoy it. Yay us, because we love flowers, we love fruits, we love veggies. It's not doing that for us. It puts out this big bright flower to attract pollinators. So the pollinators come, they fertilize, it makes a seed so it can keep the species going. That's as deep as it gets. However, we find aesthetic beauty or nourishment in what they produce, so we reap a benefit of that. And I'll touch on this in a second as well. Tomato and basil and peppers and geraniums and coleus, they are all annuals, and there is nothing wrong with having a preference. There is nothing wrong with going, I love my flowers, I don't care about food, or flowers leave me cold, I like my food production, or a little bit of each. There's nothing wrong with what you want to do. So a lot of people are really into growing their own food. Wonderful. A lot of my colleagues are. And what surprises a lot of people about me is I actually prefer flowers and blooms. And my all-time favorite is perennials. So that's where I'm at. And no shame in the game. I don't mind admitting that. I can grow darn near anything because of all the practice and years I've put in. But this is my choice. I like color, I like brightness, I like vibrance, I like diversity. So there's nothing wrong with that. So when we get through that life cycle, we start again. So if the plant has produced a seed, hey presto, we've got seeds, we buy seeds, or next spring, we buy these, and the cycle repeats through. So I listed some examples of annuals because, and it may sound like I'm beating a dead horse, and I am going to do the same in the perennial webinar, and then I'm going to do the same in annuals part 2, because the number one mix-up the number one question we get about this is, annuals are the ones that come back every year, right? Absolutely not. So I listed some very common examples of annuals to show you the diversity. And if you look at that list, you'll see tomatoes and peppers. There's herbs on there, sunflowers, geraniums, plants that a lot of times when I start saying those names, even if you don't recognize them all, you can identify, 3 or 4. You might not know what a tomato plant looks like, and that's okay. But I'm pretty sure you know what a tomato looks like. So it gives you that instant recognition of this is an example of an annual, and this, it doesn't matter how much you care for it, doesn't matter what you do. If you leave it outside, it won't come back. Now, there are some you can bring in. You can take cuttings of mint. It works amazingly. Snip a mint, bring it inside over the window, put it in a glass of water. It's going to root. Replant that in the spring. Wonderful. But they're not all going to do that. Okay? So that is kind of some broad examples of annuals to kind of tell us, what is an annual? This is what we're talking about. This is what we're dealing with. Now we're going to talk about how to plant them, because this is where we're going to get the aesthetic and the practical. So what's going to happen here is, planting day can be a busy day. I believe last year it was May 30th or June 1st when Jenny's my wife, got outside to do our planting. And I believe we were outside on the Saturday for 8 hours and on the Sunday for 7 hours. Now, that's not all planting. There's prep work, there's layout, there's filling up the pots and then doing the planting. Then there's cleanup and watering, fertilizing, everything else. But that encompasses the whole thing. So what we're going to talk about, because there's 2 very distinct ways to do our annuals. We can put them in flower beds, or veggie plots, raised planters, veggie pods, all of those good things. And we've got some examples here. I'll move this. We've got bright hanging baskets. We've got wood planters. We've got plastic ones. We have pre-made planters. We've got, all kinds of planters going on. But let's talk about the flower bed, because that's where a lot of people put their tomatoes. A lot of people, we have a little bed that runs down the side of our pathway coming up to our house, and we fill that with color. Just a really nice welcoming when you pull up to the house. So you want to loosen the soil. So this, again, I'm just going to keep picking this pansy. 1, it's closer. 2, I know how hardy it is. And 3, that's just beautiful. And what you're going to do is you're going to loosen the soil by adding amendments. So if you're outside and you've got a flower bed that's directly in the ground, during our webinars, something Nelly always falls because I try and cram too much onto my little desk. Yeah, that's going to fall. So you can go with a heavier compost. Peat moss is a good one, worm castings. But compost is one that I will guarantee every year I'm going to put that into my flower beds and my veggie plots to put my annuals in. And when I put that in, I'm going to loosen the soil. And I'm only going to go down 2 to 4 inches and break that soil, because this little guy is grown from seed and he's had everything perfect from to make him this beautiful. I stick him in a hard soil, a clay soil, a soil that's being compressed, and I haven't loosened it up and I haven't added any kind of fresh organic matter. He's going to struggle. So I want him to do well. So I'm going to turn my soil. And that's part of what we talked about last week, the cleanup. I'm going to amend it. It's all going to be roughed up, break up the aggregates. And then when I've got that, I'm going to lay these all out wherever I want them. And then I'm going to start prepping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shovel. I'm going to dig a little hole, a little bit bigger than the pot. I want to be able to get the whole root ball in. Then I want to be able to backfill around it and firm it down without doing any damage. Okay, so I can take my pot, measure it with my trowel. I forgot to grab a trowel, of course. Measure it with my trowel in my hand. So I know my pot's that big. I know it's that far across. So I'm going to dig a hole slightly bigger than that. Once my hole is prepped and I've got that beautiful amended soil, gently I'm going to take this out the pot. All you have to do is give it a squeeze, very gently. Now I'm supporting the plant. As you can see, I've got all of the crown, but I'm not squashing it. I'm just gently supporting it. Then I'm going to give it a squeeze at the bottom, and I'm just going to lift it up. Whoa, look at that guy.
Oh, so many roots.
Yeah, he is ready to go. He wants to go into some fresh soil. He is going to explode when we get him in the garden. And I'm going to put him back in his pot because roots don't like to be out. But instead of putting him in the pot, I would have put him in the ground. The soil I've dug out, I'm then going to backfill around. I'm going to firm it down, not too hard. I'm not compacting that soil again. We want it loose. That went right through me. I hope nobody's audio works for that bit. I want that soil loose. I'm not going to be or taking my boot to it like I terribly and frighteningly see some people do. Just going to firm it in so that the roots are held. Okay. And I'm going to make sure it's fully covered. So when you put your annual in, again, we're just going to lift it out. You don't want to plant it up to that depth and have roots exposed, but I don't want to plant it this deep and suffocate my plant. This existing soil level is what I want level with my flower bed. And that applies to everything. And there are some, there's one exception, and that's a tomato. You can bury a tomato deeper. It's going to stunt the growth, but you get a healthier plant. But if you get a shorter growing period, it won't really work. So rule of thumb is every one of these plants, that's the depth they want to be planted at. And then you're going to water softly, but saturate. And I had to word that carefully because I was like, water softly, but water hard. And I'm like, well, that literally makes no sense. So what I mean is if you have a wand or a hose gun or something, you're going to want to set this to the shower, the general. You don't want it on jet. You don't want it on the horizontal hard spray. You want it on the shower, and you're going to water. You're going to water, and you're going to walk down. When you get to the end, you're going to go back to the beginning. You're going to saturate. You want puddles of water sitting in there. Reason for that, it's in the ground. So it has got ample room to drain. All that excess water is going to run down past the roots, and you're going to saturate it in, and it's going to be wonderful. And we're going to talk more about watering and what to do with that. So I think I'm missing a slide here. I grabbed 2. There we go. Now, how do you plant an annual in a pot or a basket? So we have some pre-made ones. They're great. They're especially great for this time of year. You come, you grab one or two, you get that color. On days that aren't so nice or overnight, you bring it inside. Then you can put it outside and you can get that, creative juices and the inspiration going. If you want to plant your own, we've got these beautiful wood ones. We actually made these. I say we, I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I'm not taking credit for that. We got bright big baskets. We got terracotta, ceramic, fiberglass, all kinds of stuff. So you may come and take a look at this and be like, oh, I want that. Or you might come and take a look and be like, and that's not really my color scheme. And again, no right or wrong answers. If it's not your color scheme, it's not your color scheme. But you go, I'm going to get inspired. I see what they did. I'm going to build my own with my own colors. Great, wonderful. How do we do that? So we do not want to use a compost, okay? You want to use a potting mix. This is a peat moss base. It's really light. It's good for absorbing water. A compost or a heavy topsoil is going to be too heavy. It won't drain properly, and you're going to run the risk of overwatering or oversaturating your annuals. If you're doing herbs and veggies in pots, we do also have, I got this one upside down, a herb and veggie mix. This one is also awesome. And this one is certified organic. It's OMRI listed. And that's important to a lot of people. So I wanted to mention this. Very much the same peat moss base with some other wonderful stuff in it to give you the best chance of getting your veggies and whatnot grown. If you plant some veggies and you got some of that left over, go ahead and put your flowers in it. Okay? If you plant your flowers and you got some potting mix left over, go ahead and put your veggies and herbs in it. Okay? Just tell them Colin said so. You'll be gold. And what you want to do is a mistake I see people make. I'm going to use my purple basket here. And we are going to be doing a webinar too. And I am actually going to plant a planter. So have a look at our listings. And if you see that one, tune in and I will guide you through how to make your own planter. Is that on the mail on weekend? There you go. So what you want to do when you're doing it is you don't want to come up to the top. What I would do with this is I would come up to that second line, okay? And I would put my soil up to there. I'd again firm it, but not compact it. The reason I'm only coming to there is when I plant this, it's going to displace soil, so soil is going to lift. Unlike a flower bed or a veggie plot where I can just kind of disperse that, I can't in this. That soil is going to keep lifting, and I want my plant to have the best possible chance. So I want the soil a bit lower so the soil naturally builds up, because I'm going to put trailers in. I might put the creeping jenny over the side. I might put some ivy or copper. I might put a coleus with that bright yellow, the gold hitting the purple. So I don't want to come up to the top on this. And there's really no need to dig because any of our mixes are very loose already. So you just want to take your hand, displace the soil, then it's the exact same steps. Gently take the plant out, put it in. You want to make sure all of your roots are covered. But again, you're going to do that as you add plants and lift it up. So it's a little trickier, but it's very doable. And you're going to do that. Then, when we get to the watering stage, okay, the difference with this, you're going to want to be careful. Now, any of the good pots, anything you see is going to have drainage. You've got drainage holes in the bottom. This has got a little lip, so the drainage holes don't get clogged. You want to soak it, but you don't want to saturate it like you did this flower. You may have to come back and do this a couple of times in the same day on planting day. And the reason for that, it's going to dry out quicker. It's more exposed. It doesn't have all of the earth around it to insulate the roots. So you've got wind and sun and everything else hitting it that's going to dry it out. So you want to water somewhat sparingly. You don't want to see it running out the bottom like a river, but you want to up the frequency. So that's the primary differences on how to plant the annuals in the two main locations. And that second one, when I was talking about it, that applies for raised planters, veggie pots, hanging baskets, large planters, even a small pot. We plant everything. I go nuts, and I'll do small little ceramic pots this big that take one plant, and then I've got a pot this big. Then I've got huge ones and window boxes and everything in between. The process is the same for watering, planting, and filling. If you have something the size of the large veggie pot, you can add a little bit of compost because it is so big, but just always be careful. It's very heavy, it holds a lot of moisture, and you run the risk of oversaturating. Okay, drink of water, I'm losing my voice. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, now we have to discuss, well, where do we plant? And obviously that, I'm talking about where in the garden. We've already said in a flower bed or in a pot, but depending on where your flower bed is going to be dependent upon what you plant. So I've been in this game for a couple of decades plus. And unfortunately, there is absolutely nothing I can do if you have an area of dense shade and you want sunflowers in there. Even if you buy a pre-grown sunflower and put it in there, it's going to slowly die. They need the sun. And it's the same with some other flowers that like the shade. You take them and put them in full, hot, dry sun, they're not going to do very well. They have a place. So you're going to want to plant according to sun exposure. Now, if you really don't know, a lot of people come and they go, oh, will this do good in my yard? I don't know your yard. You tell me, how much sun do you get? And you see them being like, they've never thought to go outside and time the sun. And why would they? That's something big nerds like I do. If I go to a house, the first thing I'm doing is looking around to see what angle the sun's coming at and how long it's going to be exposed for. Is the front or the back the south garden? Which way is west? Is there a big tree on the west? Is there a big tree on the east? And that's years and years of landscaping and horticulture ingrained into me. But then I've immediately got a plan on what can go into certain areas, be it trees, shrubs, perennials, annuals, veggies, everything else. So you're going to want to plant according to that. And you're going to want to plant according to size. And it's not the size of the plant you buy now. It is the size it's going to grow to. So all plants, yes, this one does. This guy's just, why did I grab everything else? I didn't just have one plant in front of me. The rest of y'all suck.
Yeah.
This guy. So what you want to do is you want to look, so perfect. Right there, right on the front, full sun. Okay, so right away that tells us if I have an area that's getting 8 hours plus, it's going to do amazing. 6 plus, it should be okay. If it's between 6 and 8, it should be okay. Anything less than 6, it'll live, but it's not going to have the strength to push out flowers all season long. Okay, so we've established that needs full sun. We might risk it. Okay, we might go, I'm going to put it there and see what happens. And we'll talk about that in a second. Then I'm going to flip it. And on the back, it's going to tell me sizes. Okay, so I know if I take care of this, it's in full sun, it gets water and fertilizer, it's going to get 6 to 8 inches tall. So now I can look and be like, oh, perfect. What does this tag say? What does this tag say? And I can plan it out. Too many times, I've seen people do a planting. They haven't considered mature size. They've planted on the size they've bought. And what ends up happening is the plants get bigger in the front. They shade out the ones behind it. So I give an example, kind of going down in height of what you could do. And you could have sunflowers, the cascading, Cosmo, Zinnia, Spiralisum, Creeping Jenny. That's going to give us an 8-foot monster all the way down to a ground cover. And everyone is going to grow just dandy in its spot. It's going to love where it is, and your garden's going to thrive. Actually, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus here because I don't do that. I was working a number of years ago for an organization that had professionals, for want of a better word, and I was the rookie. As in, it was my very first time working with them. and we were planting a massive, massive public garden bed. And the guys planting had no idea what they were doing. Everything was going in the wrong spot. I went to the crew foreman and I said, can I help? Like, please, this isn't right. Massive credit to him. His name was Dave. He said, oh, please do. We would absolutely love it. We reorganized the whole bed. Everybody was on board. Nobody got offended. Everybody loved it. And we had an amazing, amazing bed. So it doesn't matter what stage you're at. If you don't know, you don't know. Asking for help, or if somebody offers it, is going to ensure you the best run for your garden. Make sure watering and fertilizing isn't an issue. And what I mean by that is I've seen this happen where people plant a hanging basket and they love it and they get all excited and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to hang it there. And they hang it there and they're like, yeah, that's awesome. But they don't have a wand like this to reach it. And you see them with the hose gun trying to jet water into the, I don't know if I can lift that back down. So you want to make sure that you can either lift it down to water it, or you've got something that'll reach up to water it. I've seen people plant and then make a mad dash. I've literally talked to them here into our store because they didn't measure their hose and their hose doesn't reach the garden. And they've planted 30 tomatoes and they're trying to do everything with a watering can. Absolutely, you can do it. It gets old really fast. So you want to make sure that you get access, that you can water and you can fertilize. Utilize your space, decks, porches, stoops, front stoops, back stoops. Again, what I said, I planned everything. If there is an inch of space in my garden, something's going in it. I'm English and I love that lush, full, diverse, dense English garden look. That really is my aesthetic. Again, my aesthetic doesn't have to be anybody else's. Some people like a more curated look of an individual plant that really becomes a feature. That's rock and roll too. Whatever you want to do, be the rebel. Hanging baskets, I find them chronically underutilized for small spaces. People are in a small space and they go, well, I don't have any room, I can't do anything. Get a shepherd's hook. Use a tree and tap a hook into it, put a screw into it. You're not going to go in enough to hurt the tree, and hang your hanging basket on it. If there's a branch, put your hanging basket on it. Chronically underutilized. You can grow strawberries in a hanging basket and they do amazing, and you can baffle the squirrels on how they're going to get to it, keep them off the ground from the slugs. So I strongly recommend that. And think of your vines. My two favorite, that's why I listed them, are sweet pea and morning glory. And you can use that on fences, on trellis. I have never done this. I want to, but at the same time, I don't. I've seen people who have planted sunflowers, then they've planted sweet peas. As the sunflower grows, the sweet pea uses it as a trellis. So now you've got sweet pea and that amazing fragrance growing up. The sunflower is big and strong enough that the sweet pea isn't going to hold it back. And then you get that amazing flower and you've got this amazing natural trellis. People also do that with their regular peas and their beans and whatnot. I have never done it because I'm always worried that if something happens to the sunflower, something's going to happen to this, something happens to this, and I get myself in a tizzy. I do have to do it one year because, as I'm going to say soon, don't be afraid to try new things. And I haven't done that. And if I was going to, I'm not going to actually be doing much gardening this year, sad face, because I'm traveling for 5 weeks this year, happy face. I'm going to Vancouver because somebody I know, Brandy, is getting married. And I can't wait to see her and Bradley get married. And then we're going to Greece. And quite frankly, I'm going to be gone away from my garden too long. And at the risk of sounding like a snob, I don't trust anybody to look after my garden like I do. So I'm just not going to be doing too much in the garden this year. But next year, I promise I will do sunflowers and peas together, or beans. So that's kind of what you do. Now, as I touched on, I get a lot of people who come in and they go, oh, I want that flower. And, oh, well, that one's for full sun. Or they come in and I love this one. One of my favorite expressions I get from people is, I can't grow anything in whatever space in my house, my deck, my backyard, whatever. There's too much shade. Challenge accepted. All day long, you can grow stuff. I've got, like I said, trees, perennials, absolutely everything. And here are some veggies that will grow in the shade and in the sun. And the reason I included the sun one, they're not going to do great in the shade at all. They may live, but if you look at the sun one, other than basil that I put in there, a lot of them are high production plants. So tomatoes are going to put out large fruits or a lot of fruits. They need a lot of sunlight. Sunlight is plant food. They need that in order to have the energy to put that out. It's in the spring when we are mad busy here, we need a lot of coffee and a lot of food because we'll be doing, 6-7 days a week, 10-hour days sometimes, because this is our busy time. This is our Christmas, for want of a better word. But you have a shade area, and this always amazes people. You can grow spinach, kale, arugula, broccoli, dill, mint. They do amazing. We've got a fun mint. Where is it? Here it is. Strawberry mint.
Does it smell
It
good?
smells incredible.
Whoa!
It smells so good. I haven't done a taste test yet. Nothing like doing one live. What? Okay. No, that would be great. Crushed up and put on an ice cream.
Oh my goodness.
Or maybe if you want to have a mojito. It wouldn't be a traditional mojito, but come on, we're rebels.
I'm not judging.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to call this now. My mouth is full of meat. But there's a number of veggies you can grow. So if you want to grow your own food, for whatever reason, you want food sovereignty, you want to get your kids into it, whatever it might be, you have options there. So if you've got an area full shade and full sun, you can do all of your veggies. You don't have to cram them all into the sunspot. You can space them out. And the same applies with your flowers. You are not limited. So our house, mine and Jenny's house, our front yard is south facing and just gets blasted by sun all day. The perennials love it. Last year we did zinnia, we did some portulaca, we did some daisies, and they just did incredible. I did a pot that had a little tea rose in the middle, and some pansies. I had some creeping Jenny coming down. I did a gold, yellow, and purple theme, and it did phenomenal. But our back deck, which I love, is in the shade, so we're not sweltering in the summer. And we did window boxes of begonias and impatiens, and they were huge. They looked amazing. So we had color happening everywhere, just different varieties of plants, which is awesome because diversity is key. And again, you don't need to take notes. Ask us, come in and talk to the staff here. Brandy will have this up as a blog post by the middle of this week at the latest, and feel free to use it. And then, just to hopefully inspire you, we have the same with herbs. So again, you're not limited. People, they get so disheartened with the shade. You have an area that's heavy shade. I can suggest hostas, Solomon seal, woodruff, lily of the valley. They'll do amazing. They'll fill it, and those are perennials. You want some shrubs? We've got dogwood, we've got viburnum. They'll do amazing there. And then any number of these. This gold one, you want to brighten up a shady area, coleus. If you look at the flower, he's in the shade section. Mint, amazing in the shade. Chives will do pretty good in the shade. So you have choices, and that means you can have flowers and herbs and have different things going on all over the place, all throughout your garden and on your deck. So don't be disheartened if you feel you have an area that isn't suitable for planting. We can get you there. So when do we plant? After last frost, which in Calgary is saying how long is a piece of string? okay, we can get a frost in June. So keep an eye on the weather. The May long weekend is the rule of thumb, but it is not written in stone, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I have had people say to me before, no, it's always safe on the May long weekend. I have seen it snow on the May long weekend. How is that safe for New Guinea impatiens? New Guinea impatiens in New Guinea, they are a perennial. They'll get 4 foot tall, they'll bloom the entire time. They're incredible. They get this big here, and then they die because they're an annual. And you even mention frost, and they're like, see ya, I'm out. So make sure you're safe. All of your annuals, your tomatoes, basil especially, they're not going to like the frost. Some will do okay. Chives can be okay. Mint can be okay. Geraniums. And then you've got the fall ones, chrysanthemums. They can actually look really good after a frost. They get that nipped color, and it looks phenomenal. But you really want to go with the rule of thumb. They don't like it. So always keep an eye on your weather. And it's always good to ensure you have time to finish your planting and do your watering. Too many times, people start doing it. They don't realize how long the job is going to take, and they don't get a chance to water. And then they've got to run. They've got to get groceries or pick the kids up or whatever else, or busy lives thrown in our direction. And they're frantically trying to water, and they've got a mess going on, and they get disheartened immediately. Plot your time. If you go, okay, I've got 10 planters, do 5 to completion. If they're done, water them, put them out, start on the next 5. If you don't have the time, these will live in that pot for another day. Do it on the Sunday. Do one on Monday night, one on Tuesday night. You don't have to do it all at the same time, but you need to make sure that when you finish, you can indeed get your watering done. So that's what you're looking for when to plant. You want to have, a nice day. You want it to be nice and warm. Overcast is wonderful. No risk of frost, and no panic stations on the day where you're trying to run around and do 8 things. You deserve it. We've had a long winter. You deserve a day to yourself. Turn the phone off, kick your feet up, do some planting, and be like, hey, I don't care what's happening anywhere else. I'm with my plant. That's what I do anyway. So, watering requirements. All annuals require regular water. They are not perennials. They are not trees. They do not have the deep root systems. Oftentimes last year, I was watering, especially during that heat dome, 2 to 3 times a day. We got a lot of messages from people, I can't grow this yet, it's too hot. No, you can. I was very successful, but it's because I was watering. Jenny would water in the morning while I was at work. Jenny works from home. Harry would water in the afternoon because he's a teenager. That's when he wakes up. And I would water in the evening when I got home. And we were sharing the load, and we were getting out there. So they're all going to require water. Check it often. You might not get a lot of warning. You think they're watered. You go out, you come back 8 hours later, and they are flat on the ground, or they're over. They might not come back. You might have lost them. So just keep that in mind. And if you've got pots, hanging baskets, planters, they may require more water. And again, I'll touch on that. The higher the production, the higher the water. So I might get away with watering my impatiens in the shade once a day, but my tomatoes 3 times a day. Okay? Tomatoes are high production. They're in full sun. There is a number of X factors why they are going to require way more water than my impatiens. So I need to check. I can't just go check my impatiens. Oh, they're fine, and think my tomatoes are. I can't check my tomatoes and go, oh, they're dry, and then saturate my impatiens. So you really want to make sure that you, after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, you should have a good idea of where things are. You should know all the impatiens are doing okay. I'm going to do my tomatoes. And you should be able to keep that up, because not everything is going to have the same requirements. That's all that means. And be wary of overwatering containers. I see it all the time. People water their container, it's completely flooded, and the drain hole has gotten clogged. Now the plants are sitting in a swamp. They're sitting in mud. The roots can't breathe. They can't grow because those roots can't get into that heavy, wet soil. Your plant starts suffering. You can't drain it, the whole thing's going to come out. So just be careful. Like I said, water your plants more frequently, but sparingly. You don't want to be flooding them. And then your fertilizer requirements. A lot of times, people They might not understand fertilizers. They might not think they're essential. They're not essential. A plant will live without fertilizer, but if you want solid production on your tomatoes, your cucumbers, your herbs, if you want flowers to popping all year, that's the sound flowers make. That's the annual sound. You're going to want to do it. And if they get attacked, if bugs get into them or a disease or a kangaroo eats them, they're going to need to get a shot of some medicine, which is what is found in the fertilizer. So start your fertilizer program immediately. Often you can do it on the day you plant. High phosphorus and potassium are key. I got a couple of ones here. You can see the middle number is bigger and the middle number is bigger. So look, and a lot of times don't worry about the numbers. It'll say right on it what it does. So look for the description. Do not over fertilize and follow the manufacturer's recommendations. I can't say that enough. If it says every 2 weeks, 10 milligrams to a liter, do that. Some people go, oh, more fertilizer is better. Not the case, especially if you're going to be eating it. So give a horror story here. Years and years and years ago, I did my landscaping in Quebec, and I used to read the horticultural magazine. And there was a story, and a guy had grown his own cucumbers, and unfortunately he passed away because his kidneys shut down. His kidneys shut down because he was using an organic water-soluble fertilizer, and he was fertilizing every day or every second day. Cucumbers are 96% water. He is not allowing water to get in there. It is constantly fertilizer. Ended up eating it, wasn't great from, terrible. Had he followed the manufacturer's recommendations, he would have been fine. I use fertilizer all the time on all of my plants, all of my veggies especially, and they are amazing. So do not please over fertilizer. It can be dangerous and it can also kill your plants, literally. So follow the recommendations. If you have an all-purpose, you got trees, you got shrubs, you got perennials, go ahead and use an all-purpose. It's not the best. That's going to kind of keep everything even. With a lot of them, we don't want a high nitrogen because we're looking for production, flowers or fruits. So it's better to get a specialized fertilizer. If you don't have one, something is better than nothing. But if you are investing a lot of time and money into growing a veggie garden or prolific blooms, spending a little bit more on the fertilizer is not a bad thing whatsoever. I love my water solubles. And the reason I love my water solubles is, look for that symbol, water soluble, or it'll say water soluble right on it. I mix it directly into my watering can. We've just said how often these need to be watered. Now I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And what ends up happening is now they are watered for the day and they are fertilized, done. And what I do is I set my fertilizer on a timer. So I will fertilize, every second Sunday. So I'll get a reminder somehow, and that'll be my fertilizer day. And I always make sure I do that, and that helps me stay on target and not forget, and fertilize all season long. Go, 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 go. People get into the summer after the spring, and they're like, oh, it should be good. No, keep it going. You want those flowers. You've spent money. You've spent time. Things a lot of people are short on these days. Get the bang for your buck. Keep it going. You keep fertilizing and watering, they're going to keep blooming. They're going to keep pushing out tomatoes and peppers. All right, quick tips and tricks. We've blown well past the 45-minute mark. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. There's more I could say about everything. I'm really trying to keep this going. I didn't even digress when I brought up kangaroos.
Wow.
That was in my little test. Make sure you guys are paying attention. Deadheading is key in some types of your annuals. Geraniums especially. The flower starts going, snip it off. Find out how to deadhead. What you're going to do there is all of the energy the flower is putting, or the plant, I should say, not flower, is putting in to producing a seed is now going to go back into the plant to produce more flowers. Remember at the beginning, we said the whole purpose was to produce the seed. You stop it doing that, it goes, man, now I got to make another flower to make another seed. And you're forcing it to keep blooming. So deadhead if you need to. Plant depending on location, time, and effort. If you don't have a lot of time and you know that, I wouldn't recommend doing 40 tomato plants. I wouldn't recommend 30 hanging baskets. You're probably not going to get to it. Put up just a couple and deal. And then if you're like, oh, that was easy, next year add one more, two more. Build until you're comfortable. Don't bite off more than you can chew. I see that too often. Don't be afraid to try new things. Sunflowers with beans. That's my new thing. Last year, we grew a sunflower in a 2-gallon pot. It was a 10-foot tall sunflower, 8-foot tall, just to show it can be done. A lot of people don't think it can. It absolutely can. Try it. Worst that's going to happen, you're going to lose a seed. Oh, well, you know for next year. And if it works, you know for next year. And based on that, I never like to say failure. So instead, I just absolutely butcher the English language. Remember your successes and your not so successes from previous years. Maybe you put a flower and it didn't get enough sun. Maybe you didn't have a chance to water enough. Maybe you put something and it did incredible. Learn to build on it. And if you make a mistake, learn to adapt and ask for help. Rotate your crops. Not a bad thing. You had your peppers in one place. Next year, put your tomatoes there. Move things around. They're all pulling different things from the soil. It keeps things moving. Do what you like. It's your garden. Too many times I hear people going, oh, I don't know if my neighbor would like that. All right, well, if your neighbor is paying your mortgage or your rent, then we can ask their permission. Until such time, do what makes you happy. We work hard. We're busy. We spend money and time and our energy on doing this. It should make you smile when you go out into your garden. Because if it doesn't, why are you doing it? Okay? I want to see people walk out into their garden, ear to ear smile, and I want them to feel successful. That's what it's all about. Have fun doing it. I absolutely encourage that. I've already said my stuff. I don't like all the ornate rock with one grass coming out the middle or some weird rock in the middle. My next door neighbor has that, and it doesn't bother me at all because him and his wife and his kid love it. He's always out in his garden, and he loves it. I see him being happy. That makes me happy. Okay? A lot of crap going on in the world right now. If our gardens can become our little Zen bastion of peace and inspiration, I don't care how your garden looks, as long as you're happy. And if you're not happy, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's literally why I'm here. I want you to be happy. I want you to be successful. I want you to learn how to keep the kangaroos out of your tomatoes. I want you to be happy and successful. I don't want you to walk out and be like, I suck at gardening. This is no fun. I want you to walk out and be like, oh, a new flower. Oh my God, my first tomato. That's what I'm looking for. So don't be afraid. You are never going to bug us. If I haven't made it abundantly obvious here, the trick is with passionate gardeners is getting them to shut up, not getting them to speak about that topic. All right. So a huge thank you. If you guys didn't sign up, it would be very awkward. I would just be yelling at a camera, some plants and brandy, and then she would yell back at me, and then I'd run away and cry. So if you guys weren't here, it would be a disaster. So thank you. Let's get into some questions and